The wages of sin is death. But while here on earth, the punishments for sins can be alleviated through penance. In the early church, penance was only used in rare circumstances. But by Luther's day, it was a common practice required of all Christians. Penance are acts performed by the sinner to lessen punishment and gain forgiveness. The severity of the penance depends on the seriousness of the sin. From the mild, reading devotions or the Bible, fasting, reciting chants or prayers, to the more extreme, wearing a cilice or even self-flagellation. By the 10th century, penance can include making trips to holy places called pilgrimages, or viewing relics with special holy powers, even buying indulgences, pieces of paper with the power of forgiveness.
Late medieval Catholicism provided all kinds of ways of trying to make sense. I don't want to sound too sort of intellectualist here, but to deal with it, to cope with it, right? You could go on pilgrimage, you could pray for healing, there were relics, there were shrines. This was all about trying to deal with the misfortune that people experienced. And so if you take those away, well, what's in its place?
By the 1500s, Pope Leo encourages the sale of indulgences as a way to raise money for the church, specifically building the extravagant Basilica of St. Peter. A monk named John Tetzel is given the territory of Germany to persuade the people there into buying indulgences to help fund this church in Rome. He convinces the people that when you buy indulgences, you are buying forgiveness. This infuriates Martin Luther.
And he has to clear the function of the word of absolution. And first, he understood the absolution, I absolve you from your sin, as a declarative act, a speech act in a declarative sense. And in a second step, in an efficacious sense, as verbum efficax, as a word which does what it says. I deliver you from sin, and the sins are forgiven. Speaking this in the authority in the name of God.
He had shifted the definition of what it means to be a Christian from basically a ritual-based religion, a religion that tries to approach God on the basis of human, not just works in general, but sacred good works, especially in participation or attendance at the Mass.
Luther, he's not just attacking indulgences, he's attacking the way in which people are misunderstanding indulgences and the way in which this preaching undermines the gospel itself.
One of the ways that the church taught people to understand suffering and to try to seek to cope with it was to view the actual suffering that they experienced, even sort of daily toil by which you get your daily bread, as a kind of penance. And if you endured it patiently and faithfully, didn't murmur and grumble like the children of Israel, this could reduce time in purgatory, this could help reform your character and help conform you more to the image of Christ, rendering satisfaction for sin along with Christ's merit for sin. And you can find pastoral manuals, confession manuals, where lay people are specifically instructed to ask their confessors, I've endured this suffering, please count it to me as a penance for my sin. Well, Luther pulls that doesn't work with justification by faith, because all penance has been paid for by Christ. Everything has been paid for by Christ. And so, well, what's left then? Luther could still talk about suffering as a means of conforming one to Christ. He could still talk about it as a means of developing compassion for other people as they suffered so that one could understand their suffering. First and foremost, though, it was a test of faith.
That's what the Reformation is always about. It's about the reform of preaching. It's about getting the gospel out to all the people so that they understand what the mercy of God is and that it's not something for sale.
Every sermon has the function to set free, to free the sinner, and to say you are free, don't fear.